Journeys Ahead, Beyond Trilogy, Part 2, Chapter 6.
Showstopper!
Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. Crossing through the glistening pink mirror space portal, Void, T, now alongside Vivian, stepped back into the mystical and glossy realm. "We're back!" the Matterberth cheerfully exclaimed, causing the girls to perk their heads up with a now awakened Jida. "Whoa, that was fast. You guys were gone for like 30 minutes. Joby revealed with a mix of curiosity to her tone. "I mean, time works differently in here. Sometimes when we cross through the different worlds, it's a lot faster outside, but perhaps slower inside. It's just how things work." Joby's adopted father explained as everyone began to stand and approach, curious to see who they had found. "Jida, you feeling alright?" Void tenderly asked as both him and his wife reunited with a greeting hug. "I'm fine. Just a little tingly, I guess." Jida gently replied before giving a small kiss to Void's cheek. "Now, who did you..." "Oh." The musician suddenly stated with widened eyes as her, Tiger, Joby, and Pavnu set their sights upon Vivian, who had been looking on with a silent, wide-eyed stare. "Oh, hello." Jida greeted with an awkward and shy wave. "Whoa, it's a girl." Joby joined in as she tilted her head upon seeing Void's female counterpart. "Salutations, new reflection," exclaimed Pavnu with a mesmerizing bow, while Tiger just crossed her arms and nodded as a greet. Holding in more than she wanted to admit, Vivian took in a long breath, collected her bearings, and just nodded her head. They weren't her, she told herself within. They were different people. Almost identical, but different. "Hey, are you okay there, new face?" Jida asked while standing in front of her husband's female reflection, as she stared back with visibly shaking eyes. Looking into one another, Vivian felt as though she was staring at a ghost. A ghost that had plagued her memories for so many years. A ghost that she wanted to embrace. Without warning, and to Jida's sudden surprise, Vivian lunged forwards and wrapped her metal arms around the musician, to everyone except the other two Void's shock. "Whoa! Hey, what's up, stranger?" Jida asked as she awkwardly hugged back. "Sorry. It's just... you remind me of somebody that I used to know," Vivian stated, causing Jida's empathetic impulses to kick in. "Oh, I'm sorry. The name's Jida. Jida Woods." Letting go and nodding her head, Vivian replied with a quiet, "I know," to Jida's worried surprise, before looking back up with a deep breath. "I'm Vivian. Vivian Celeste's daughter. I'm here to help rescue your boy." The scarred spark introduced as the other girls began to both surround and introduce themselves, Joby being the most audible. "Dude, you got a Winter Soldier arm! That's awesome!" As this all occurred, Void swiftly turned and approached another shard along the wall, with T close behind. Reaching out, Void touched the glass and gave it his essence. Looking on, the Matterberth had expected Void to stab the wall as per last time, but instead, Void had another plan. Sending a blue surge into his right fist, he reared back, grunted, and suddenly punched his reflective space, shattering the mirror space glass apart into a bright red explosion. Gasping, everyone in the room whirled their attention to Void, who practically fell back in the T's arms, groaning and being completely covered in that red electricity once again. "Blue! What the hell?" Jida shouted in disbelief as the girls ran over to the Spark's aid. What in Matira's name did you just do? Vivian wordily asked as the red energy once again collected into the top of Void's chest and got absorbed into his heart. It's called breaking and entering. And I thought that wouldn't be so painful. But I was wrong. He replied in a groaning tone as Jida, Joby, as well as Pofnu, alongside T, helped him stay upright after a few wobbly seconds. Turning their heads, the now large squad set their sights upon a yellow glowing portal, one that would hopefully be the last. God. Alright, team. Let's move. Nock, if you're still there, keep an eye out. Void commanded before suddenly getting a response.
Still here, just haven't got much to say.
Nock stated as Cock gave a quick
Hello.
from the background. Nodding his head, Void stood front and center with the others behind him, took in a deep breath, and then just crossed through, as what had essentially become a large team followed right after. Stepping out to the other side, Void and the rest were immediately greeted to the sight of glowing yellow shines and the sounds to a busy city environment below them. Oh, wow, that's bright. Tyre exclaimed with a raised hand as the entire group took in their surroundings. Standing upon a bronze skyscraper roof, they were all able to make out the almost cartoonish yet sci-fi looking city below their feet. Tall, glowing towers and skyliners stretched up to a four-moon sky above, being connected together through hundreds if not thousands of bridges. Flying cars whizzed by, while strange land vehicles traversed the city streets below, all shimmering with gold, metallic, or chrome shades. Blimps and spotlights also filled the sky of this neon environment, while advertisements featuring robots flashed on big holographic screens upon almost every building structure. What the... Is this? Joby asked as she walked up and perched down upon the glowing yellow ledge of the building. A cybernetic world? Sure looks like a kid. Vivian remarked as she shied away from both Jida's and stood beside an inquisitive Pofnu, who looked entranced to the large world around herself. New reality discovered. Welcome to Neo Salvaheim. Void's arm device boasted, leaving everyone to look at it in a surprised state. What? Void questioned in surprise before looking up to the cyber world. Neo Salvaheim. Interesting. Jida added while standing close to her husband's side.
Sure doesn't look like a Salvaheim.
Matt called through his shaky signal as everyone took it all in. Huh. Well, we can't let the differences distract us. Vivian, T, focus upon your environments. Let's find the last reflection. Void commanded while shutting his eyes and focusing upon his surroundings. Doing the same, both T and Vivian mimicked Void's motions. Two pairs of horns glowing blue, the other pink, catching the invested eyes of all those around them. North. We travel north. Vivian revealed first, as the two other Voids caught the wind of their distant reflection. Yep, northbound. T agreed before opening his eyes that gently faded from a blue shade. Yep, seems about right. Void concluded as he turned and opened a portal to the ground, gesturing for the others to follow him. Alright, let's get a move on. He commanded while jumping in, having the others close behind. All emerging out to ground level, everyone took in the sheer insanity of the city. This Neo Salvaheim. Everything was cybernetic, all artificial, even down to the people, which were just a bunch of golden robots that strolled on by, all with blank and creepy stares. Every which way they looked, the Nova Sun group saw gold, bronze, and silver. The shops, the vehicles, the roads, every single ounce of character to the city was drenched over with bright glossy metals and neon lights, giving everyone an uneasy feeling. Okay, this is... Jida dragged out as she turned in a full circle at her surroundings. A bit much? Tiger asked, as both her and T made the same motion. Yes, you read my mind. Pofu muttered, before suddenly looking down at a small robot who was looking up at them with big, bulging, blank eyes. And a bit freaky. The kitsune added, before nudging the ball with her foot to just roll away. Weird. This is like a fever dream of mine. Something in my wildest fantasies, a whole world of robots. T babbled with a sense of wonder as golden light rays glistened off his oval-shaped eyes. But it's beautiful. He went on with wonder, while Vivian watched a robot dog licking the leak on a fire hydrant with oil. Yeah, sure is, old man. She mumbled before everyone began to march on ahead. So, you think this next reflection is going to be a robot? Joby inquired as the group traversed through the golden, Vegas-looking environment. It wouldn't surprise me. Anything's possible at this point. Ford replied as he followed the sensation within his horns. It was so strange, everyone thought. A world without semblance of natural life. Everywhere they looked, robots. Robots with empty stares, watching them as though they didn't belong. Growing weary, Jida huddled close to Void's side and wrapped her constellation-filled arm around his as a means for comfort. They're looking at us with their yellow eyes. She mumbled as a newfound sense of weariness fell over the group. Oh, relax, Toots. They're just machines. It's not like we're gonna get jumped or something. I mean, look at that one. Vivian remarked while pointing to the other side of the road, where a box with tiny wheels rammed into a wall without any real reason. In fact, all the machines seemed to lack any real brain function. Some moved along, others stared, while others were just glitched out on the ground. Well then. Jida mumbled with a small orange flare to her hair, when suddenly, the unexpected occurred.
Halt! Stand still! Fleshies detected!
Suddenly, coming out from around the city corners and crowds, came a group of large, slim, but boxy golden robots. These machines had singular golden eyes, police-looking hats, as well as flashing red and blue lights coming from their shoulder spheres. Upon seeing these, the Novasuns and their allies suddenly went back to back against each other, while they were slowly closed in upon. Whoa, hey, what's the big deal? Tiger exclaimed as the police bots hummed with engines inside their chest.
Fleshies detected! Must be tested! Must be tested!
One of the bots exclaimed with a beaming eye.
Good show. Oh yes, good show tonight.
Another exclaimed as they all got closer.
Flashies must be tested, must be played. Oh joy, oh joy.
Another stayed with a booming voice. Before Void and the others could even ask what any of that meant, the robots all flashed their eyes and sent a wave of energy into the group. One moment, they had all been awake and tense. The next, darkness. Out cold and confused to their cores. Slowly opening his eyes to the sound of chattering and cheering, Void awoke to the strange sight of being seated around an audience. A cybernetic audience. What in Matira's name? He awkwardly and tiredly asked, as he suddenly took in the environment. Beside him on both his lefts and rights sat his family as well as the reflections, who were all now awakening to the noise of chatting and cheering. Turning around, Void could see hundreds of robots, all sitting in similarly designed seats, cushioned reds with cup holders and all. The bots all bounced up and down, throwing drinks of oil, while others ate from buckets of popcorn. And by that, they were all actually just throwing the kettles at their face and letting them hit the floor. Turning back forwards, Void took in the view of a large show stage filled with yellow spotlights, glistening star decors on the walls, and a fancy, glittery element to it all. Glowing neon panel lines went up and down these structures, being reflected back in a very eye-straining way. They all flashed and buzzed, while smoke machines began to create a scene upon the glossy stage, leaving everyone rather confused. What the hell? Vivian groaned in strain, with her head tilted backwards. What is this? A movie theater? Wait, how did we get here? Jada asked, as she then looked down to her hands, realizing that they had been tied down by a glowing yellow energy rope. In fact, everyone had been chained down to their seats by these strange currents, which has made things all the more dissatisfying. Knock, do you read? Void asked into his comms, but found them to be jammed by an unknown signal. My tails are all cooped up. Povnu groaned as she awkwardly sat with two of her tails poking out at the left seat side, while the other four sat scrunched beneath her rear. I got popcorn, T suddenly stated as a random red and white striped tub of buttery goodness rested within his lap, looking to have been placed by someone when he had been out cold. Why do I have popcorn? T asked, as the others tried to fight against their restraints. Okay, yeah, I already hate this world. Tiger groaned, finding that her restraints worked for the undead as well. I really hate this world, she repeated, while everyone continued to try and break free. This is some kind of energy wire. It was designed to reduce one's powers and abilities. Sparks used these back in their days of war. It's gonna take a hot minute, but... Void stated, trying to think of an escape plan, but stopped as the lights dimmed and the music began to blare. From all around, the robots began to rile themselves up, leaping up and down, booming with thrilled voices, and making the strange auditorium they sat within all the more lively. Oh great, what's it gonna be? Joby asked with an annoyed face as the crowd began to roar. Snapping to life upon the stage, two moving spotlights beamed along the back wall, going up and down and around, seemingly searching for something to land upon.
Ladies and middlegents, butts and ribbons, welcome, one and all.
A voice suddenly boomed from a set of loudspeakers above, causing the crowd to go absolutely wild.
It's that time of the night again. A night of games. A night of extravagant fun. A night to deliver yet another.
The speakers exclaimed as the light focused upon the star outline behind the stage.
Show-stopping performance.
With a sudden yellow glow, the star shimmered to life with an explosive amount of confetti. From its extravagant shine, a figure jumped, twirled, and landed front and center upon the stage, revealing one of the kookiest robots Void and his group had ever seen. The figure was an odd sight to behold. His head was a rounded, light red, clay-shaded TV that had a face like Jet's, except with some major differences. For one, the machine looked to have a pair of sharp yellow sunglasses on its screen, sunglasses that concealed one regular dot eye and a more ringed eye. Below, a tooth-gritting smile presented itself as the figure spun and laughed. Atop his head sat a yellow and brown striped top hat that bounced up and down with a dumb little face, showing that it had actually been another robot upon the strange host's head. Below, being detached but connected through that same yellow energy strand around Void's wrist, was a maroon-red, lower button tuxedo. A yellow and brown striped tie lay tucked within a beige undershirt, while two glowing yellow shoulder spheres connected themselves to levitating, energy-connected cartoon-gloved hands. This robot had no legs. Rather, it was just levitating by a waist-connected thruster, emanating yellow rings that kept him upright. Snapping his fingers to the beat, the host-like figure spun once again and raised his mic up towards his mouth, speaking aloud once again.
Ha! Good evening, folks. My name is JJ Showstopper, and welcome to the best game show in the universe, the JJ Jumble Games.
The figure revealed, leaving Void and some of the others to just eye one another with an awkward stare. He seems cheery, Tiger stated, while both Joby and Pawview eyed the robot with, dare one say, googly eyes. Yeah. They both said in unison, as JJ turned, snapped his fingers, and set the spotlights to aim down upon Void's entire group.
Well, the popo wasn't lying, folks. It appears we have some flesh and bone in the building. These ratings are about to go off the charts.
JJ exclaimed with a bombastic voice that was followed up by a laugh from a pair of golden speakers on each side of his head.
Welcome, little fleshies. Are you ready to have the time of your lives?
JJ questioned as everyone now looked up to him with concerned eyes. We beg your pardon? Void asked, not understanding where this was going, or what was going on.
You silly little meat sack! Everyone knows flesh and bone aren't allowed around here. If you want to traverse onwards through Salvaheim, you must partake in the game. A fun game!
JJ went on as the crowd continued the roar. What? Jida asked as some of their seats began to rumble.
Oh, relax, hot mama. You'll catch on.
JJ boasted as the lights and scenery suddenly began to shift and transform into something new upon the stage.
Lights! Camera! Don't forget to check out the merch store at our website. Action!
Blasting up from their seats to everyone's sudden shock, Jida, Void, and Joby were sent flipping up into the air and were then forcefully landed back down upon the stage. At landfall, their legs were instantly entangled within the same yellow energy strands from their seats, rendering them unable to really do much. Before their eyes, 3 podiums arose to their shock, all having a set of triple buttons on display to press. With the lights snapping back to life in a normal manner, the stage now had a blue vibe to it, with a screen in the back, showing off Void, Jida's, and Joby's confused faces.
Welcome to Correct or Shocking, the personal game that questions your friend's absolute knowledge.
JJ shouted with a bouncy point towards the roof, as the crowd went on with its usual cheers.
The game is quite simple. Guess the right answer from your buddy's life and gain points. Guess wrong, and you get zapped. Understand?
Blinking in a confused set of stares, the 3 on stage glanced between each other, the robot, and then down to the others, who just stared with baffled eyes to what had been happening. Wait, what? Void asked, to this sudden whiplash, before a metal-wired cap dropped down from the roof and landed upon his, Jida's, and Joby's heads.
Give me a moment to collect some personal data, so we may begin.
The game show host boasted with a raised hand to nearly every living being's disgust. I'm so confused right now, Joby exclaimed as a new tune began to blare from the speakers above.
Data collected. Let the fun begin!
Focusing downwards, all the stage spotlights focused upon Void, who winced with a teeth-baring snarl.
Question number 1 for Void Novason. What part of the instrument family does Jida's guitar fall into?
JJ asked as the 3 options appeared upon the podium in flashing blue lights.
Is it A, percussion, B, strings, or C, brass?
Blinking in stunned silence, Void glanced at Jida and then back at Showstopper, before gently clicking option B, strings. He answered with a baffled stare back up.
Congratulations! That is correct!
JJ shouted to the crowd's delight and clapping response, while Void just looked on to the others, shaking his head in absolute disbelief.
Next up, Jida Woods. what is Joby's actual last name?
JJ asked, causing Joby to flinch with a sudden stare.
Is it A, Void's daughter, B, Shiramaya's sons, or C, Korra's daughter?
Staring with a slightly disgusted tone, Jida adjusted her throat and spoke up, while Joby just awkwardly looked away in a silent stare. Hey, bub! That's kind of a personal question, don't you think? The musician angrily inquired with an orange flare of power to her eyes.
Answer the question!
JJ boasted in a demanding tone that startled all three upon the stage. Beezus, fine. C. Korra's daughter. Jida answered with a cold sweat, leaving the crowd to wait in anticipation.
Congratulations! That's correct!
JJ happily stated as confetti exploded from the ceiling, alongside a strange victory horn. What a freak. Void mumbled as he attempted to break free from his restraints. He tugged at his legs, even tried to summon a Nova Rune or Blade, but the energy given to his limbs was nothing short of an uneasy restraint to his soul.
Joby, Korra's daughter, what is Void's worst fear? Is it A, heights, B, cold spaghetti, or C, losing his family again?
Glancing between her father and then the robot, Joby took in a breath and answered in a confident set of words. Easy. A. It's heights. She said, as Showstopper repeated his end phrase once more.
Congratulations! That's wrong!
Igniting the life, Void was suddenly engulfed within a bright shock of yellow electricity from the metal hat upon his head. Gasping in shock, he quickly absorbed the energy that thankfully didn't hurt him. However, the shock had been so strong that it almost ignited his blues into their supercharged yellows. Oh my god! Tiger shouted in disbelief from the crowd, as the others began to realize how deadly this quote-unquote game show actually was. If Void hadn't been tuned with cosmic electricity, he would have been severely injured.
That concludes round 1. Time for a switch out.
JJ boomed with a sinister, happy-go-lucky attitude that was followed up by his laughter. Getting launched back to their seats, Void, Jida, and Joby were swapped out with T, Pofnu, and Tiger, who were sent to the stage and hooked up in a similar manner as the other three. Hey, what's the big idea? T asked as the metal data collector was strapped down around his head. Ugh, this sucks. Pofnu barked, while Tiger just grumbled with annoyance.
T the Matterbirth. Question number 1. What is the name of Pofnu's signature weapon? Is it A, the Chaos Blades, B, the Psychus Axe of Doom, or C, a Naginata?
Showstopper questioned, while eyeing T with his crazed, screen-covered eyes. Looking back, the Matterbirth could see the robot's left iris looking to twitch and spasm, while his hat above drooled with oil. T worriedly replied, before glancing over the Pofnu, who was silently and quickly mouthing the words, Naginata, at the side of her muzzle. Naginata. T answered with a cold sweat and popcorn-covered beard.
Congratulations! That is correct!
JJ thankfully congratulated before turning to Pofnu's annoyed stare.
Pofnu, what is this China's favorite pastime activity? Is it A, long walks, B, bacon, or C, riding?
The show host questioned as his hat continued to bounce and dance atop his head like a sugar-high child. Pofnu grumbled while looking towards Tiger, who turned her ghostly hand into a B behind the podium. B. The Kitsune warrior boasted her answer. However, Showstopper looked a frown in response. His smile had literally turned upside down through an animation, while his yellow shades turned into a deep red, accompanied by a loud, eardrum-cutting beep.
You cheeky little furry! Don't Don't you know cheating is wrong? Sorry, but you both lose.
The robot exclaimed as both Pofnu and Tiger were violently electrocuted. The shock came both fast and strong, knocking the two of them out without even giving them the time to shout. In response, everyone on Void's side yelled in dismay as their two allies fell into a state of deep sleep. China! T wordly bellowed as his horns and veins began to flare. You mother! He barked before the three of them were swiftly interchanged back to Void, Jida, and now Vivian, who gasped and grumbled to being on the stage. Landing back in their seats, T and Joby turned to Tiger and Pofnu's aid, but the two of them were definitely going to be out for a long while. What's the problem with you, you freak? You could have killed them! Jida boasted with a spit towards Showstopper, who just laughed again.
Just a part of the show, hot mama. Now, time for some more. All of you are shooting his air through the roof.
JJ stated as his body returned to normal and projected a stats image of rating numbers to his screen, showing an increase of viewership compared to whatever episodes came before this one.
Round two with you.
Appearing upon Jida's podium emerged three options once again. Options that were taken from Vivian's mind. Options that JJ exclaimed as per standard. But this time, taking the air right out of the room.
How did Vivian's Jada die?
Everyone and everything felt the fall silent. Void, Jida, the others, and especially Vivian, whose annoyed stare dropped to that of a silent and wide-eyed emptiness. What? Jida asked, as Void looked over with concerned and disgusted eyes to such a question. Back in their seats, both T and Joby stared on with disbelief towards the ask. How did Vivian's Jida die? Who did this guy think he was?
Was it A, exploding into a million bloody pieces?
Showstopper asked, while Vivian's face scrunched into a sudden, teary-eyed stare. Don't even. She growled, while Jida just stared on with shock at what she had been hearing. Hers is dead too? She whispered to herself, now feeling a bit uneasy towards this revelation.
Was it B, shredded apart by a pack of monsters?
The robot asked with his creepy, never-ending smile, while Vivian's horns began to charge up and frost over with a pink layer of ice. Stop it. Stop talking. The spark snarled as her eyes and panel lines began to glimmer with that same burning hue.
Or C, was she erased from space and time itself?
I said stop! Overriding the system around her legs through broken love and rage, Vivian released a frost-induced energy pulse that not only broke the podiums, but the entire stage itself. Shouting in shock, while Void and Jida went flying backwards, along with Showstopper, whose face fell to a surprised look. Gasping in shock, the crowd of robots fell backwards, alongside T, Joby, and the unconscious, as the front stage was reduced to nothing but a cold and icy crushed waste. Cold steam radiated off her horns, while Void and Jida lay groaning beside one another. Showstopper, however, was face first in the snow, but slowly pushed himself back up in a groaning manner. Throwing his fat head up, he blinked and then checked on his hat, which was still bouncing on his maroon-shaded head. Looking from left to right, JJ took in the sight of what had become of his little performance area. The stage was now, for the lack of a better term, a frozen tundra. It had been split down the middle and stabbed over with a dozen ice shards. Snow now covered the ground, stretching back to the half row of seats. Vein-shaped ice strands crawled up the walls, looking almost to be reaching towards a distant heaven. A heaven Vivian so desperately wanted to go to, but yet was stuck here, being forced to relive her past, let alone almost get answered by another Jida variant. slowly sitting up. Void and the others slowly stood to their freed and frosty feet, leaving T to carry both Tiger and Pofnu with his beefy metal arms. Turning their sights towards Vivian, they watched as she stood her ground and glared upon Showstopper, who just stared right back with a visibly cracked screen face. "I said, stop," she boasted, while reducing her energy that she had practically used all up in that one blast.
My stage! My beautiful stage!
JJ painfully cried while slapping both of his hands upon the sides of his head.
The lights! The seats! The decor!
With his screen flashing back to the viewership charts, everyone could see them suddenly drop, for the cameras had been cut offline from the Ice Age feeling blast.
No! My ratings! My sponsorships! My money! My bread and dough! My hooky pooky coins!
The robot went on as he then scrunched his artificial face into an angered expression.
You!
He growled before spinning and pointing at Vivian.
You son of a b****!
The robot shouted with an audible censor beat, cutting out the crude term he had just called Vivian. Snapping his fingers, Showstopper summoned forth larger strands of yellow constrainer energy from the ground that instantly rose up and entangled everyone like pythons, all except for Vivian, who instantly raised her frostbiter at JJ's head. "Hey!" she barked as Showstopper suddenly flipped himself up into the air and landed a few feet across from Vivian upon the stage, making it look akin to a Western standoff.
I can't believe this! We didn't even make it halfway through the first act! I had so many fun games planned for you and your friends, you stupid f***!
JJ angrily shouted as he threw both of his fists down in an angry little girl type of manner, accompanied by a blow of steam from his head speakers.
Connect 5! Monopoly! Super Classic Fighters! It was gonna be fun! It was gonna make bank! And then you come along and it up for everyone!
He shouted with flashing red colors. "Wouldn't be the first time, Tin Can. Now let them go before I turn you into a Sunday afternoon popsicle." With a threatening aura to her words, Vivian began to slowly regain her energy, giving the robot one last chance to do the right thing.
Vivian! You, noble sad widow. You can't just walk up in this world, being all flesh and bone, and just truly walk away. If you really want to let go, then I guess we gotta jump to the final act. Not even 30 minutes in. What do you all think?
To these words, the crowd of robots roared in the cheers, while Void and the others looked on in strained rage, wondering as to what was about to happen.
Very well then. Let's get right to it. Behold, little girl, the final act. The Train of Chaos.
Showstopper bellowed before snapping his fingers and setting everything in the darkness. As the lights came back on, Vivian shouted in sudden shock, for the entire scene had changed into something completely different. She was now out of the showroom, and was now standing upon the caboose of a flying train, to her complete disbelief. "What in Matira's name?" she yelled in shock, while trying to take in the details. The train she was stationed upon was like the other vehicles in the world: gold, bronze, and silver. The train had also been running on a track that was being swapped and or interchanged by a pair of large arms and hands at the steam engine's front, creating an odd sight for the spark. Laying in front of her were a total of 7 carts that led up to the train's control deck that looked to be strapped and stuffed to the brim with all kinds of explosives. The carts had no roofs or walls, but they did look to have a bunch of obstacles that had fallen off of or plummet one to the city below.
Welcome to the train, Vivian. Here you will test your strength and do your best to not just make it to the end, but save the life of the youngest fleshy in your group.
JJ exclaimed as he soared in from the side, using his lower thruster as a means of flight. "What?" the spark asked as a bunch of flying cameras went around the train, broadcasting the scene to the world along with Void and the others below.
Oh, whoops! Spoiled the surprise!
JJ stayed with a childlike smile as Joby's tied-up body was suddenly teleported to the train's control deck. What the? She asked in shock while looking at the explosives that flashed around her body. Kid? Vivian shouted with a twist in her gut.
You have 5 minutes to complete the obstacle course and save your friend's sweet, innocent child. If you fail to reach her in time, you both lose the game, as well as your lives.
JJ called as a small constraint of yellow energy was lashed around Vivian's leg, preventing her from using some massive advantages. All she could use was her blade, it seemed like. You! Vivian growled as JJ laughed and soared off to the side.
Time begins now!
He screamed with glee as a large red holographic timer appeared above the train, instantly counting down from 5 minutes to 4 minutes and 59 seconds. Scrap! Vivian exclaimed while whirling her head towards Joby, who was just barely seen through the obstacle course. Vivian! Help! The younger Spark screamed, sending a wave of dark memories into the icy being's heart. Vivian, help me! An old voice called from the shadows of her soul. Please, I'm scared. It called again, giving the scarred Spark a set of chills no winter could ever grace. Vivian, please! I can't move! Joby shouted again, snapping the wounded soul out of her trance. Looming forwards, the half-blinded Spark bared her teeth to the obstacle course and swiftly deployed her battle helmet. Hang on, she boasted before kicking off her heels and rushing forwards. Going across the caboose, Vivian quickly leapt forwards upon a cart that was divided up into 3 wobbly pieces. These plates rocked back and forth upon the train's connector bolts, making it a bit awkward to stand upon. Yet, Vivian didn't even bother. With one leap, she jumped forwards and landed to the next cart base, skipping the obstacle entirely. Standing before the next challenge, Vivian eyed down a slim wall that had several metal hands punching out of holes. Hands that she would have to dodge in order to get across. Taking another lunge, she quickly ran across the train's slim platform, while both ducking and awkwardly dodging. Using her rubber hose limbs, she both shrunk and grew while dancing around the quickly appearing and disappearing fists, all up till reaching the next cart. 3 minutes, the clock above said, while Showstopper just continued to bounce up and down within the air, watching with his angered eyes. Hang on, sweetheart! Vivian called as her next challenge awaited her. Before the Spark's eyes were 4 large yellow orbs, rubber orbs that had no platform below. If she fell, it would mean certain death. Leaping forwards, she bounced upon the first ball and then awkwardly landed on the second. Finding her footing, she jumped to the third. As Vivian landed down, she crouched and propelled herself forwards, skipping the fourth and sliding into a rushing continuation. This next challenge had 2 windmill-looking arms going up and around in an awkward gear-like formation that left Vivian a tad perplexed about how to go about it. 2 minutes, the clock right above. She was running out of time. Taking in a breath, the scarred Spark jumped forwards and took hold of one of the moving arms. Digging her claws into its metal form, Vivian was swiftly raised up, and with one spinning momentum, she let herself go at the downwards turn. By flinging herself off, she quickly went into the air and even avoided the second to last challenge. Looking down, Vivian was able to see that it had been a ball and chain-like challenge. Balls and chains that were on fire, no less. Laying down upon the last cart that was actually divided into 2, Vivian took note that it was rather long, looking almost akin to a 50-meter sprint you'd find in a track rally. At the end, Joby struggled in her restraints, as the bombs flashing lights went on and off with a rapid succession.
Impressive! Most impressive! You've made it to the final stretch!
Showstopper revealed as he soared down and flew beside the cart Vivian was standing upon.
To win the game, all you gotta do is simply touch your friend's arm. Normally I'd let it be a dead sprint, but I'm gonna make this hell for you for breaking my stage!
The robot shouted as what appeared to be a bunch of robotic women with golden dresses appeared with singular wheeled feet and bladed arm guns. Looking on, they all glared with golden visor eyes as a horde of them guarded poor Joby.
30 seconds!
Showstopper called as the now 1 minute marker dropped by 30. Glancing from the cruel robot and then down to the strange assistant machines, Vivian stalled behind her visor and charged. Deploying her blade, the spark began to commence an onslaught upon the feminine-looking machines, slashing from left to right. Vivian leapt, kicked, and cut through the bots. She punched, smashed, slid, cutting many in half, while others went flying over the ledge. The best way the scene could be described as is if Vivian was a bulldozer going over 100 tiny little clown cars. It was not a fair fight in the slightest. 10 seconds left, the timer stated, as Vivian swiftly spun and slashed down, cutting the last assistant bot in half. 5 seconds, it blared. I'm here! Vivian screamed as she leapt forwards, retracted her blade, and practically tackled Joby, just as the timer landed upon the 1 second marker. Once contact was made, the whole scene flashed with a bright yellow light and returned everyone back to the auditorium, where the Novasun family had been watching it all with sheer horror on their faces.
What? How?
Showstopper asked, as Vivian ran the Joby in order to check and see if she was alright.
How did you beat that? Nobody beats the Chaos Train!
The host went on as he landed back to the broken stage with rage-filled eyes.
You fleshies! You worthless fleshies! You ruined everything! Who's gonna pay for all this?
All turning with angered eyes, the three voids began to override their restraints through sheer rage, while Jida began to heat up with anger. Tiger and Pofnu, however, only now just began to awaken.
You! All of you are no good pieces of
the robot exclaimed as he threw his mic to the ground.
Oh, that's it! That's it, sons! I'm gonna kill you! You hear me, fleshies? I'm gonna put on a real show with this! I'm gonna...
Showstopper! Falling silent, JJ's expression suddenly dropped to shock, and then to fear. There was a voice. A booming voice that called from behind. A behind that held nothing but frost. That was, until a golden star portal opened with a sun ray-filled haze. Shielding their eyes, Void and the others watched in sudden disbelief as a new and unknown figure began to exit this energy field. As the figure did, Void's, T's, and Vivian's horns began to flare with a familiar energy. An energy that made them all realize who was about to cross through to the other side.
Uh-oh!
Showstopper said as he slowly turned with a now shaking body. Crossing through to the other side came this world's void reflection. A reflection who, to everyone's surprise, looked the most different compared to the others. Being nearly 7 feet in height, this void's head was about the same as the others. Spherical, 6 oval horns, the usual. Except that this reflection had one singular, cyclops oval eye that glimmered with a summer shine. His head skin was a light yellow, being made up with darker mango-colored veins beneath. Alongside maple brown-colored horns, this void's body was unlike the others, consisting of dark black and gray metals that were divided up by the same golden energies that was within his eye. All his limbs were divided up, bulky and floating with golden yellow spheres seeming to keep them together. He had no neck, rather a divot upon his chest that shimmered with the same energy that kept his head afloat. Tubes of power dangled from below his chest cavity, resting above a singular golden orb that seemed to be the key component in holding this void together. Yellow lights flashed on and off upon his body, while his spark crest did the same, glimmering with a hopeful shade of power. A power he had seen to hold over all the robots that watched in fear.
Creative Ode! What brings you here?
Showstopper asked as he whirled around in a cold stop. Whoa, he looks awesome, Joey muttered as the tall and fit reflection approached Showstopper with the look of an angered soul.
What in Matira's name is going on here?
This new Vode character asked as twinkling stars bloomed upon his yellow skin.
Just having a fun game show, sir. Nothing too out of the blue.
JJ replied with an awkward smile, leaving Vogue to glance up and eye the Novasuns and their reflections, seeing their stunned but visibly injured bodies. You ran these strangers through your game show? And you didn't even bother to tell me? Vogue asked as his hands clenched into a pair of burning knuckles.
Well, the police brought them to my door. I assumed protocol was...
Raising his fist back, Vogue punched Showstopper square in his screened face, shattering it apart and sending the robot into a temporary shutdown. You sadistic, maniacal scrap snapper! You had every right to tell me! That is not what I programmed you for! Any of you for! The Spark exclaimed before kicking Showstopper's body to a pair of rushing medical bots. Get his mind screwed back! And all of you! He shouted while pointing to the crowd. Go home and think about what you've done. This isn't the Roman Empire, you frickin' animals! You should be more civilized than that! He boasted, causing the bystander bots to turn, bring their heads low, and leave. Turning back around, Vogue snapped his fingers and disengaged the rope restraints around his reflections. As they were all released, they stood and eyed the yellow shining spark with curious eyes, as he stared back with a sense of deep regret. I am so terribly sorry about all that. Would you care for some tea and perhaps a slice of cake? Vogue asked as he bowed his head with a hand to his chest. Blinking, Vogue took in a deep breath himself, smiled, and nodded his head. Yeah, that'd be nice, he replied as the new reflection stared back, with a stern but inquisitive look to what he knew to have been his variants.